couple years back, like, Mom, you should come onto social media and check this out. And here's the rules and guidelines and do this and do that, but don't do this and don't do that. But she's been amazing about it. So I've been very fortunate. My biggest
That,
supporter always.
that is wonderful.
So we are now, welcome to this week's episode of Weekly Sessions. Thank you guys so much for the week off last week. Blake, thank you for joining us this week. I'm looking forward to help I was going to say introduce you to everybody, but everybody here, I'm sure, already knows you as more people are coming in as well. So, but I want to make sure people know your background.
Oh, well, yeah. Happy to give you the short story. So I'm a musician by training, not an accountant. Originally, did not have any inclination, desire. I wanted to be an orchestra cellist.
Nice.
So that was my major in college. I had the great fortune to go to a wonderful conservatory program at Northwestern, and then I graduated. And then I realized that life as a musician is not exactly what I had dreamed. And that's when I got into bookkeeping. I was always good with tech, and I fell into this job where the bookkeeper quit all of a sudden. So I picked up bookkeeping. I discovered QuickBooks. I was like, I can fix this. And I had a lot of fun learning how to do that. And I said, all right, I love music. I don't want to do it professionally. What can I do for a living that would give me flexibility? And that was accounting. So I started going back to school to get my CPA. And while I was
UCLA, school, I believe?
That was, yes. So UCLA Extension, they have a great accounting program, did a bunch of classes.
2016 or so, roughly, I believe, right around there.
What's that?
Was it around 2016, I think, is when you
so I started going back. I moved back to LA in 2010 and then started classes. And it took me like, I don't know, 5 years to actually get my CPA, maybe longer. But while I was doing that, that's when I started Cloud Sourced Accounting, which was my cloud-based bookkeeping practice. And I was in the right place at the right time. Somebody from Xero, it was actually Ted McRae from Xero. He's now over at Accounting Suite.
Interesting. He's actually here locally in Ventura as well.
Oh, no way. That's awesome. Yeah. So he called me up or something, and he said, hey, Blake, we're doing a certification down in Orange County. Come on down. We'll give you a discount for driving all that way. And I said, all right, well, why not? And I did it and changed my life because I discovered cloud and basically said, I'm going to build a firm based on Xero. And that's what I did for about 5 years. And then a CPA firm came along called Aprio Cloud. It was a different firm at the time, HPC, and offered to buy me. So, yeah.
And then you became the director of technology and marketing at that point in time, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes. So I joined and was doing tech and marketing. And then I decided after about a year to try something else. So I went to work at Armanino in LA. They're a big top 25 firm. So I wanted that big firm experience. HPC at the time was still a small CPA firm. And so I did that for about 8 months and realized it wasn't for me. And then
if you don't mind me interrupting your journey, like what were the primary differences that stood out to you, obviously from small to large? Like what were the differences, or what were your nightmares of it all, if you will?
So the people were great. I love that. What I didn't like was the firm was still doing tracking time. Even though we were doing fixed fees, it was still hourly based. And for me, trying to go in and change things as somebody who wanted to put in technology and do what I'd done with my firm at a larger scale, the resistance I encountered culturally was just, it would have happened. It would have just taken 5 years to do something that could be done in one. And so for me, I'm not that patient, So when the opportunity to go work for tech companies came along, that's when I made the jump into technology. So I went to work for a company called Flowcast, making clothes management software. So not the clothes in your closet, but your financial clothes. I had to explain that to my family a lot. And then that was so for corporate controllers mostly, right? So that was new for me. And then also I worked at Draft for 2 years doing FP&A software. And now I just left. So I'm out on my own again, doing my own thing.
Now, well, which actually brings us to a couple. You're a man of many projects always, right? So I believe you've actually recently are partnering up as kind of a brand ambassador again with one of our favorite companies, Relay. But you more, that's a great thing. But you also have your own app, which I want to talk a
Yes.
little bit more about as well in a moment here. But give a quick overview of both of those real quick, if you don't mind.
Sure, sure. So I'm a big fan of Relay. And so when I left, I knew I was going to be doing some sort of consulting. So I was out talking to different apps and different accounting firms saying, I've learned how to do marketing really well over the last 4 years for tech companies. How can I help? And I was talking with Yusuf at Relay. We just ran into each other at a conference and he's like, hey, Blake, we really need somebody to, own the accounting community. And I was like, well, I love Relay. I'm a customer. I'm using it for my startup. I'm using it for the podcast with David Leary. And I was like, oh, that sounds awesome, right? Help you out with webinars. But what was nice is that Yusuf didn't want it to be just go out and do webinars for us. He said, come talk to accountants and tell us what they need. So I get to be that voice of the accountant inside of Relay. So Matthew, if you have ideas, or if anyone here has ideas for how Relay can be better, you tell me, and then I'll go help the product team, get on board with that idea.
Absolutely. Real quickly, Rich had a question in the comments. He was asking what FP&A is, which is financial planning and analysis, correct?
That is. So it's the fancy term corporate America likes to use. I like to describe it as just forecasting the financial statements.
Yep.
So that's what Giraffe does for small businesses. You connect your QuickBooks or your Xero file, and you can project financial statements using formulas like you would in Excel. Yeah. It's super cool. Amazing stuff. And some really innovative firms are using it. So that was really fun.
It becomes visual storytelling of a company's financials for them, right? In a sense. So
helping them figure out where they're going to go. We had this really cool report that I still think is one of the most innovative things, where you could show, here's 6 months of historicals, and then here's the present day, and then here's 6 months of where you're going to go based on everything we've projected. And it's not just oh, we're going to do a growth pattern based on your historicals. You could program in drivers based on your hiring plan and your revenue model and, all this stuff that you would do as a CFO.
Different scenarios.
Yeah. Making it easier to do that, as an accountant. And you don't have to be a finance wizard to do it. That was really cool working there for 2 years.
Now, what's funny is, as you were talking about kind of your journey, the one thing that you didn't really touch base on was probably one of the things most people know you best for, which is the podcast.
Yeah, I forget about that sometimes. So the Cloud Accounting Podcast here.
Very, very impressive. I
need a green screen like yours so I can put this behind me like this.
The funny thing is, I'm trying to do shelves to be more like yours, so we should flip flop, I guess.
Okay,
but
I'll tell you where I got this. You tell me where you got your background.
Done. I can help you with that stuff for sure. See, too bad you weren't the winner out in scaling, right? Now, with Cloud Accounting Podcast, 271 episodes you and David have done. Yes. 271 episodes.
Yeah. David, very early on, he said, we can't ever skip. I wanted to skip 1 week. And he was like, no, if we skip 1 week, we're going to stop. So we've never skipped a week, and we've been doing it for 3 years. And that count includes some bonus episodes because we were numbering those early on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot. But you get into a routine. It's like going to the gym, right? Once you start, every day or every week, you just keep going.
What would you say through your journey? Because, doing video and doing podcasts is very big in our industry right now. Everybody wants to find ways to share their knowledge out there. What were some of the lessons you learned along the way that just would be invaluable for those who are trying to get started?
For doing podcasting? So I think that the hard part about podcasting is the first 10 episodes, most people quit before they get to that. And you really honestly have to commit to, I think we did 100 episodes before we really gained traction.
Yeah.
And it's a very exponential growth. So you're not going to have a lot for the first year. So there's got to be something that motivates you to do it. You need to have a core core group that like motivates you. And that's what we had. So that's really important. Like, would you do it? Would you do this thing even if it was just you and your co-host every week? And like, that's what David and I had, is we just like talking. So it was like, let's just get on and we'll talk and we'll record it. And then hopefully people will listen to it. So that, I think that helps a lot.
It was an interesting combination, right? Because you kind of brought the Zero world and the Intuit world together to be able to talk about all platforms. And I think that was what is so great about it is it's not platform centric. It's all accounting, it's all technology, all news, all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah. So David had like 18 years 20 years at Intuit. Yeah. So he has that QuickBooks, Intuit background. And then I had the Xero firm and I was a big advocate for Xero, and I still am. So yeah, it's like, we want one place for everybody to come where it's vendor agnostic. To the extent that it is. I mean, we have sponsors, obviously, but we don't let the sponsors dictate the content on that show.
Exactly.
So like, it's really what we think. And sometimes they don't like what we say. And I've had that happen where like we go to a conference and the PR person comes up and is like, I just want to warn you, like some of the execs are not happy. And I say, well, people like the show because we say what we think. And this is all the stuff that people are saying behind your backs anyway. So you should know it.
Why not bring it out?
Yeah, exactly. And address it and talk about it. So yeah, it's fun. Also, I have a big mouth and I can't keep it shut even if I try. So, right.
Well, people accept you that way. What would be one of the topics? What's one of your most memorable topics you'd say that you've had on the show?
Oh, well, so we did a bunch of PPP coverage.
Yeah.
Like when that was all happening. And that was really interesting because we were able to like get on and record and release it the next day. And people really liked that because it was hot news, right? And we were going through not the technical stuff of like how to get it, but more just like the news coverage of what's going on. And I think that really like resonated because a lot of our audience is accountants who are doing more than just tax and audit, right? They're helping their clients, they're doing bookkeeping, advisory, all that stuff. So like for us, for that group, PPP was a big deal. And it was just really fun. Like, I mean, the whole situation at the time was not fun, but being able to help was fun.
Yeah. Hindsight. Definitely. I'd agree. It reminds me, ironically, when I was a kid, I sucked at baseball really bad. And I was in the outfield. Somebody hit a fly ball and I went to go catch it. And instead of catching with my glove, I caught it with my face and had my braces stuck onto my lip, right? And I'm going somewhere with this, I promised, to where like couldn't come off. And I remember as we're getting in the car, I'm young, my parents stop and take a picture. And I'm like, don't take a picture. Like I'm crying. And I remember them saying, this will be funny someday. This will be funny someday.
Well, if it was now, they would have posted it on Instagram, right? For all their friends. So
amen.
That's what I do to my
no
kid.
Evidence. Don't get any ideas. Okay. She knows who I'm talking to. Jeff was saying persistence in your journey with the podcast. That's great.
And I saw in the chat, Debbie said she wants to know where I got the bookcase, and Wayfair.
Nice.
Wayfair actually comes through sometimes.
They've got good stuff, especially you just need to know like a nice interior designer to get you a better discount or something would be great. Right. But
I find some of their stuff's pretty good. I mean, this wasn't cheap because it's like fancy IKEA. I mean, it's still that compressed wood, but it's like fancier than like, it's ridiculously heavy. I can't move this thing now that I assembled it in this room. It's staying here forever.
Does it use Allen keys or is it screwdrivers?
Screwdrivers.
Fancier. You're absolutely right. There we go.
I don't understand why IKEA thinks that we can't have screwdrivers. Like everyone has a screwdriver. Just let us use that. Why?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a conversation for a different day, I guess. So your application that you've created, Earmark Cpe, which I think is, you told me about it before. It's phenomenal, and it makes complete sense, especially with your podcast. Can you explain what that is to everybody? I'd love to hear their opinions on this.
The Earmark Cpe App. So the idea is, we've had listeners say this, CPAs, we have some EAs, some CMAs that listen. They say, I love the educational content on your show. It would be awesome if I could get CPE for it. this is for the Cloud Accounting Podcast. And I said, someday I'm going to figure this out. I've been thinking about it in the back of my head for 2 years. And finally, I said earlier this year, I'm going to do it. And so I hired a developer, started building an app. And the idea is you listen to a podcast, and then in the app, you can take a quiz and you can get CPE credit, because there is a form of NASBA. I don't know what they call it. It's like a type of study called QAS self-study. And I read the guidelines, and we can do this. We can wrap a podcast episode in a course in an app and offer CPE. And we just got NASBA to approve it. So the app is going to go live next month. We're targeting mid-December, and it's going to be free in public beta. I actually always want it to be to some extent free. So helping accountants get CPE, you can go in and get a free credit every week. And then if you want more than that, like let's say you've got your license renewal coming up, or you just want to get more, then you could help out the platform by subscribing. So
I'd love to know in the comments from everybody, who here actually who can benefit from CPE credits. The reason I love this is the idea is to be able to actually, even for myself and for this show, is to take this and translate this and to be able to get those CPE credits for weekly sessions. And I'd love to know how many people are actually grabbing on needing CPE credits, because I think it's a great idea. I really do.
Yeah, my hope is that there's a lot, right? Obviously, there's like 650,000 CPAs licensed in the US. I don't even know how many EAs there are. There's like 100,000 CMAs. So I think there's a good audience for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, Linda. Linda says she listens to both the Cloud Accounting and Earmark podcasts. Thank you. And just before this, I got off an interview with Ron Baker. I was like so excited to do a whole episode with Ron Baker on timesheet excuses. Like the 4 top reasons that people still use timesheets, and he goes and debunks all of them in a row. So that'll be on the app for a credit.
Can you give us one of them?
You need it to measure profitability. That's a very popular one. How do you measure the profitability of your firm without timesheets?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we've got some responses coming in here. Of course, Hector is a huge Ron Baker fan, right?
Hey, Hector.
So, good to see you, my friend. Tanya, good to see you as well. Nancy was saying, I need credits, but with all of the QB credits I get, I need accounting audit credits.
So I want to have those, right? So like, I want to have all the different fields of study you need. So, but at first it's going to be like, the specialized knowledge field of study, because that's the catch-all bucket. But eventually we're going to have tax, we're going to have accounting. I want to get some tax podcasts on there, and then we can offer tax CPE.
There you go.
So like I still got to sign her up, but I want to get Tax Girls podcast on Earmark. We're going to figure it out.
So everybody, if you have a certain person that you usually go and listen to for CPE courses, do us a favor, please make sure to connect them with Blake. Let's help him get them on the platforms as soon as they can. And the more people that are set up onto it doing this type of stuff, the easier it will be for you to get those credits. So you're not rushing at the very last minute every single time.
Yeah.
Now, Richard was saying in the comments on Facebook, according to the National Association of Enrolled Agents, there are approximately 53,000 practicing EAs in the US.
Awesome. So they every EA needs to get a certain amount of IRS approved continuing ed, and apparently NASBA CPE counts for that. So we'll make it happen.
So speaking of the number of accounts, everything else, the first time I think that you and I connected at the very beginning, a long time ago, was around a mutual friend, Maurice Berdugo with LedgerSync.
Oh, wow. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, Maurice, LedgerSync. Awesome.
Good friend. And he's always, of course, has so many positive things to say about you. Now you're in a company like with Relay. Relay's basically their own bank. They have their own bank fee. They capture data themselves, right? So it's helping to solve a lot of the challenges, because checks suck. I mean, they just do, right?
Yep.
There's no way around that stuff. So
Relay is a bank, right? Like, that's the beautiful thing about it, is instead of working around the banks, Now it's a bank that actually is going to build all the stuff that you need inside of an app. So like the thing for me is just being able to delegate access to client bank accounts by role, like you would in QuickBooks or in Xero, inside of the bank portal. Like you have a portal, all your clients in one place. Here's their bank accounts. They're all integrated with direct feeds into Xero or QuickBooks. You can see the check images right there. They have high quality bank feed data. So like the payee actually comes in on the payee line in the bank rec in QuickBooks or Xero. And yeah, it's awesome. And then they've also got Bill Pay, which is the Relay Pro thing that came out this year. So it's a simple bill pay with approvals. You can send wires, ACH. You can send paper checks if you need to. Yes. So they take a little longer. They take 8 to 10 days. So you got to make sure that you get your clients used to that. But you can do it. So it's like for all the clients where say bill.com isn't going to be a good fit, right? We know there's like some clients can do that, but most can't. And if you want to standardize bill pay, like do it in the bank. So that's it. Like that's for Relay. It's like if I were building my practice again, I would standardize it on Relay and I would incentivize clients to use Relay. And because it lowers the amount of time I have to spend doing the bookkeeping.
Amen. Absolutely. Now, so I do have a bit of a question for you with your partner on the podcast. So Relay is a bank, but if you're not doing some payment stuff, Melio is kind of, you guys are.
Oh, David Leary and Melio?
Yeah, you guys are crossing over. What do they call those? The circles, that Venn diagram?
So we use both, right? So we use Melio to get paid into our Relay account.
Oh, see, there you go.
Because you can have like a Melio link that you give people. So it's like ours is, Earmark for our Melio link. We send that to people, or it's on all the invoices. Oh, and it's great. I make David use Xero for the Cloud Accounting podcast. Yeah. So all of our Xero invoices go out with the Melio link, and then when they pay, it goes into our Relay account. So we're using everything.
Okay, so why do you like Xero better?
So I should preface this by saying that, when I started my cloud journey, QBO was a dog.
Yes.
It was terrible, right? And we all admit that back in like 2010, it was not good.
Through like 15,
pretty much, right?
So, it won the award many years, yes.
So like I encountered Xero when they were like a team of like 12 people in San Francisco or something. It was tiny, and they had just come to the US, and they were a revelation because now all of a sudden you could actually do everything that you needed to be able to do. And it's just stuff like, cash coding and being able to like pull in years of transactions and reconcile all those in minutes and stuff. Like that was something that you just couldn't do at the time in QBO. So for me as a bookkeeper, that was amazing. I think that nowadays they are very similar in feature set, and David calls it a Coke Pepsi thing.
Yeah.
Right. I like Xero for a really nerdy reason these days, which super, like nobody cares about this, but I like it. It's that in Xero, journal entries can be cash or accrual. So what this means is that as a nerdy accountant, you can actually run the books simultaneously in cash and accrual basis and flip back and forth if you're doing journal entries, which you cannot do in QuickBooks Online, to my knowledge, or even desktop. Once you start making journal entries, it's accrual. And right. So it's kind of neat because I actually had some startups where I did consulting for them to set up their books. And they said, well, we need to report cash basis to these investors because that's all they care about. But I want to do accrual. And so we were able to set everything up so that they could actually produce both sets of reports in a small business accounting system that you would normally have to go to like Intact or NetSuite in order to do that. So, but nobody cares about that except me.
Well, I'll one up your nerdy as well and say that everything I've always heard about the API with Xero is much easier and friendlier to work with for app developers.
Interesting. I think they innovated in that regard. I mean, like we have to give Xero a lot of credit, right? Without Xero coming to the US, QuickBooks probably would have stayed. QuickBooks Online would have stayed where it was. they would never have gone and built the marketplace. We wouldn't have thousands of apps that integrate. I mean, David Leary's whole job was growing the QuickBooks Online ecosystem for all those years at the end of his time at Intuit. That job wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for Xero. I tell him that. So we all benefited. And Xero's actually done pretty good. I mean, they didn't get the growth they were hoping for in the US, but they're still up to like 300,000 accounts now in the US, which, it's QuickBooks Online is millions, but still, like, that's nothing to sneeze at. So yeah, it's
Richard Rope is actually watching on Facebook, and he continues to tell me through his like roundtable groups that the adoption rate of Xero has dramatically, like exponentially increased. Like so many people are moving over to Xero, and they're loving it. So it's the right tool for the right job. Right?
And I think with the price increases that have come through from QuickBooks, like Xero is very attractive when you look at putting your whole practice on something.
Yeah.
Like Xero has Ledger, which is $3 a month or something. They have got Cash, which is like $12 a month. Like for the clients that don't need bills and invoices, like it makes a lot of sense to stand like with QuickBooks, you kind of have to like, what's your minimum is like 30 something a month for anything. Well, they have a starter version.
I think it's about, I mean, the self-employed, like you don't even touch on that because you can't even move that up to anything else. So we always start everybody at plus and above personally.
And I've never been a fan of limitations on users because it makes people do things that are not secure, like share logins.
Great point.
Right. And Xero always had unlimited users from the beginning. So I didn't have clients that were like cheating with the logins.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, what was it around? There's one more reason that I'm really, it's just the culture of Xero. In New Zealand and Australia, accountants get way more respect than they do here in the US. Bookkeepers too. It's just the nature of the compliance regime there is such that business owners, as soon as you start a business, you talk to an accountant, probably even before. And accountants there are much more involved in setting up software and keeping their clients compliant from day one. It's like a big part of the culture in business. Whereas here, we're looked on as like an afterthought in a lot of cases, right? Like the business owners set everything up, they go direct to Intuit, they buy the software, they do it, and then they come to us to clean up their mess, which is not a good situation, right? But because of the way things are done in Australia and New Zealand, Xero is very, very, very focused on the accountant channel. The accountant, like that's where they get most of their business.
Yeah.
Here in the US, Intuit's main source of revenue is from selling direct to small businesses. The accountants are less. So naturally, we get less attention. So Xero has always been culturally like more attuned, I feel, to the needs of accountants than the competition. Like, and that appealed to me a lot. I like that.
I think there's something to be said over time as a business grows, everything else, because I think there's some people that would say that the big green machine used to be that way quite some time ago, but we've seen that transition. Now, more importantly, Hector's saying that he needs to do a video on this whole cash-based journaling. Hector, can you leave some YouTube for the rest of us? Maybe just a little bit. Like you can't even go on YouTube and search QuickBooks without you pulling up. So
the trick with Xero, it's actually really simple. But Hector, I really want to talk to you about this. You code everything to income or expense accounts. You don't use any asset or liability accounts when you're coding transactions. And then you do journal entries in Xero to do the accruals and deferrals. And you check a box on the journal entry that says exclude from cash basis reports.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when you run your cash basis reports, it excludes all your journal entries.
Very cool.
And then when you run your accrual reports, they are correct. Yeah. QB cannot do this.
Yeah. Very neat.
And I don't think it ever will because it's like fundamental, like down to the code, So.
Yeah, they'd have to do a whole bunch of rewriting for sure onto all of that. So actually, Jeff was reminding us it's actually beginning part is about $25 is where we start with all the Intuit type pricing and things. So,
but again, like, I'm a Pepsi guy, I'm like whoever is what, right? But like, I really do have much respect for like Intuit and QuickBooks. And I think it's a great product. And I totally like get why people are in the QuickBooks ecosystem. And, honestly, I'd also tell people, like, if I was starting a firm again, the fact that a lot of people use QuickBooks makes it a good reason to use it for your firm. Like, switching people to Xero from QuickBooks involuntarily was always a huge hassle. And most of the firms I know now do both, right? Like they don't force their clients to do one or the other.
And it's healthy competition. If we didn't have that healthy competition, we wouldn't have evolution of products.
Yep.
So
no, it's great. It's fantastic.
Where do you see the future of accounting? I mean, those who listen to the podcast should already know some of this stuff, but where do you see the future of accounting going in 5 years from now? What do you think it looks like?
Man, there's this giant talent shortage, which is not getting any better. I guess we should talk about, like, are we talking, I talk a lot about the future of the CPA specifically. I think accounting in general is becoming less dominated by credentials. So like the CPA is not what it used to be. And unless something magical changes at the leadership levels of the AICPA, and unless we somehow it's been 5 years since we've been soliciting commentary on the education curriculum changes that need to happen. It's going to take another 5 years to implement those changes. Like, we're not going to see real meaningful results on any of this for a long time. So it's kind of set already, the direction. And the direction has been fewer people going down the traditional path of, I study accounting, I go join a big firm, I get my CPA, I work a zillion hours, I get burned out, I go to like a smaller firm, or I go to industry. Like, that's been the path. It's getting disrupted. So now it's kind of like you can choose your own adventure. If you are good at tech and you're willing to learn, you don't have to be a CPA. I never needed to get it. I did it because it was like a personal challenge for myself. But like, honestly, nobody cares. It just looks good after my name on LinkedIn. I wouldn't say, you can study accounting up to intermediate and know everything you need to know to be good at doing small business accounting. Like, none of that consolidation stuff really matters for most small businesses that you do in advance. So yeah, it's like, there's a ton of opportunity, but also like, it's hard to get guidance, right? There's no set path to follow anymore.
Yeah.
So that is like why one of the reasons I'm doing Earmark is because I want to help create the knowledge path for people, right? Like the non-traditional education that you need to be a non-traditional accountant or to do something innovative. And yeah, like I want to help in my small way.
So that's where community also comes into play, right? And finding, when I went to college, we didn't have Facebook communities to be able to learn from everything else. If I remember correctly, you've gone to and been part of Accounting Salon as well. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So Accounting Salon is a great example, right? Of kind of like, correct me, please, but it's basically like a mastermind group of people that are motivated and dedicated towards the industry. And you guys get together, I think it's once a year or something like that, right? Or how?
Normally that's what's supposed to happen. It's been derailed a bit, like everything, happens. But yeah. So it's like it's basically a Slack community and an in-person get together. And like you said, yeah, it's just a bunch of people who have a similar mindset. Originally, it was all people practicing, but then like a bunch of us started to join apps. So, it's like Will Lopez is at Gusto and I went to Giraffe, and then, and then there's been a bunch of consolidation too. So like the joke is that, everyone in Accounting Salon eventually is going to become the High Rock Accounting, conference, which is Liz Mason's firm. And she's been bringing in people right and left. And, the joke is she's going to acquire everyone's firm. So,
she's super smart, super talented.
Yeah. So. But I think things like that are great. Like, and there's a bunch of them that have cropped up, right? Like Ryan Lozanos has Future Firm. Jason Statz now has his like tech community group that people are part of. You've got your thing. Like this is how people are learning these days, right? Hector's got his YouTube channel. Like Hector has probably taught more people about accounting than any college program in the history of the world. Like,
yep.
And that's just going to get bigger. It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Is like, that's how people learn things. They Google things and they YouTube them.
So where do you go to learn things?
I Google. That's the thing that's funny is like people ask me how do you know how to do all this stuff? And I'm like, Well, I go to google.com and then I type in what I'm trying to do. And then I go beyond the first page of results, usually to the third or fourth page if I need to. And I find the answer. Like we should teach people, we should do a class on Googling. I like in school, just that, like how to search for knowledge. And we used to do library skills, right? I wonder if they do that in school. Like, I don't know. Because in accounting, there's too much to know. Like and that's the problem with 4-year accounting degrees is you can't teach people everything they need to know in 4 years that they're going to use in their career, because half the time it's out of date by the time they teach it. And then it's just also too much stuff. So people have to be good at doing research.
Agreed.
And watching YouTube tutorials, right? Like if I don't know how to do something in QuickBooks, I'm going to go to Hector's channel and I'm going to search for how to do it. And chances are he's got a video there. So
I would love to give the money I still owe for college over to YouTube any day, because I feel like I've gotten so much more knowledge and wisdom from various, content creators out there instead.
Yeah, it's funny. They keep trying to get me to subscribe to YouTube Red, like every day. It's like I see that pop up, like, would you like this video to continue after you close the application?
They don't know of a bookmark apparently, or something like that, or save for later, I guess. But
I still haven't paid for it, but like maybe I'll have to consider it.
Hector pays for Red.
No ads.
Jeff Weathers also brought up Doug Sleeter. So speaking of Doug Sleeter, if I heard correctly, Accounting Web has got a conference going to be coming up, first time right next year.
Yep. I'll be there.
It's going to be San Diego. I think you probably know a little bit more about it. Can you tell us about what that conference is going to be?
I actually don't know too much other than like, this is going to fill the gap that, Accountex left when they bought Doug Sleeter's. They bought SleeterCon, then they destroyed it, right? Like that's basically what happened. I don't know how else to put it. But what do you expect when the company that buys you, like their main thing is doing fish market conferences in like the Netherlands or something? Did you know that? Their biggest conference? They put on conferences all over the world, and like their big one is like fish.
Really?
Yeah, like distributors, fish distributors and buyers get together. It's like enormous.
Wow. No.
Yeah. And they buy an accounting conference, right? So yeah, of course they're not going to be able to do it, right? But yeah, there's a gap, right? For an independent conference for small firms that's vendor agnostic. And yeah, hopefully Accounting Web is that. I'm excited.
I think it'd be great. I know that they were just doing Call to Papers. I think that may have just closed. I don't know for sure, but it's going to be somewhat limited in this year. So people, if you're not familiar with it, you should definitely be checking it out. I'll be sure to follow up and put a link for it on the video in Facebook later on, of course, as well.
Hector wants to know, is Doug Sleeter involved in Accounting Web? I haven't heard so.
I actually, so unofficial, don't know for sure. I heard he was involved to some extent. I don't know if it's guidance, advice, or what, but I've also heard Allison Ball is involved now as well.
Nice.
I believe they're picking the best brains they can to help pull this thing together. So involved, I don't know to what extent yet. So Doug has definitely left a big, gap in our industry for sure.
I know, right? Like we need that again. Somebody's got to do that. If Doug Sleeter doesn't do it, then I'm going to do it.
So, well, on that, as we get close to closing down our time here, if there was through your entire journey, you've touched base on just about every aspect of our accounting industry, right? You've owned your own firm, you've worked for large firms, you've now been a brand ambassador, you've worked for these different app companies. What's your advice you would give to somebody who's getting started and wants to build up and become the next Blake out there?
Well, if you want to build a firm, it's really about designing a firm from the ground up where you are serving a specific targeted type of business, right? Call it niching, call it whatever you want. I met a guy at the Sage Transform conference, Joe, who was doing this in LA. He's building a firm that's going to do back office and accounting for agencies, which he used to be a part of, right? So he knows the business really well. And he's going to do only specific types of agencies. He gave me a list of the 4 different kinds of these design agencies. and he's
Wow.
got the whole thing worked out in Sage Intacct. And he's going to basically just create one and clone it and only service those businesses. So think of it, it's like a SaaS company.
Yeah.
It's like a multi-tenant SaaS company for back office. And they can just be that back office for all those different, and those companies are all the same, right? They have different talent, they have different creative, results, but like they're the same thing. So like that's what I would do if I was building a firm again, is that, because I like it's just a win, right? If you can do that for people, like you're going to win against a traditional accounting firm, probably.
I think the hard part, I agree with everything you're saying. The difficult part at the beginning is when you're just getting started, and you're just trying to pay the bills. Like to be able to select a niche, you have to be really, really committed to it and understand you got that power of no, which I suck at. You have to use that no and stay committed. And if you do that in the long run, you'll reach success faster, right?
Yep.
Is what you're basically saying.
Yeah, and I get it. Like you got to take on the work. Heck, I'm doing that now while I build Earmark, right?
Yeah.
The key is you got to stay focused on what is your core mission, and if you have to do that other work, but under a different brand, do it on the side. Don't do it as part of this company that you're building, right? Like treat it separate and be very focused on that, I think.
I love it.
Well,
any last words, things you'd like to share with everybody?
Listen to the Cloud Accounting Podcast. Go on your podcast player and check it out.
And it's actually, it's available. So, I mean, iTunes, player.fm. I mean,
everywhere imaginable.
Everywhere.
Yep.
Everywhere.
And my Earmark podcast, which I don't have a card for, just search Earmark Accounting on any podcast player, you'll find it. And that'll basically, those are the two things I'm really focused on. I'm doing a podcast with Greg Kite and Caleb Newquist.
Oh, nice.
It's called Oh My Fraud, a true crime podcast for accountants. So instead of murders, it's bank accounts. Yeah. So that's going to be available for CPE when that launches. So that is cool. Really cool. Yeah. They've been doing some webinars together on fraud, and it's been very popular for a long time. So they want to unlimit themselves by doing podcasting. So it might not be for delicate ears, Greg. It'll definitely be entertaining though. So we're going to have to put the explicit warning. Explicit CPE. They're basically doing their best job to get me people complaining to NASBA about me, so we'll see if they succeed.
It sounds like you're just going to have somebody that's going to spend more time doing edits with bleeps is what I'm hearing. Is that right? So,
I mean, we have to decide if we're going to do it. So that's the critical decision to be made in the editorial process. Do we bleep them or not?
Well, my friend, I really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you guys. I hope everybody enjoyed today's show. Next week, of course, can you believe it's Thanksgiving next week?
I know.
So, we will be taking Thanksgiving week off. May do something real quick and small, but hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. And as always, here's wishing everybody a very successful week. Thanks, everybody.